closely around you. Do you feel safe here, in this illusion of calm? Maybe you believe you're in control, that your life is unfolding just as you planned. But something feels off, doesn't it? A quiet noise inside your head, a persistent whisper that says you're missing something important. You pretend not to hear it because admitting it would mean facing an uncomfortable truth. Maybe you're falling behind. Let me be clear with you. It doesn't matter how much of an expert you are, how hard you've worked to master a single field. The harsh truth is this: sooner or later, you'll be replaced. Replaced by someone who knows something you don't. Someone who connects dots you never noticed. Because today, the world no longer rewards the isolated expert in their ivory tower. It rewards those who know how to play across multiple arenas. Look at the greats: Da Vinci, Curie, Franklin, Jobs. Yes, they were geniuses. But that wasn't the secret. What made them truly powerful is something most people are afraid to even try. They refuse to be defined by a single label. They crossed boundaries. They risked being misunderstood. And you? You've settled. You think your specialization will make you stand out. But the deeper you dig into one well, the less you see the vast ocean that surrounds you. Want to know the real danger you're facing? Today's reality doesn't reward depth alone. It rewards connection. While you spend years perfecting a single skill, others are learning 10 different ones and seeing the invisible thread that ties them together. They create what you can't even imagine, because they have something you don't, a global vision of knowledge. And right now, as you read this, you might be on the edge of becoming obsolete, without even realizing it. Not because you're incapable, but because you still believe the old lie, that knowing everything about one thing is enough. So tell me, when was the last time you learned something truly new? Something far beyond your comfort zone? You probably can't remember. And you know why? Because you accepted the invisible limit the world placed on you. You didn't question it. That boundary, that illusion, is your real enemy. Not lack of talent, not lack of intelligence, but comfort. Comfort is the most dangerous prison because you chose it willingly. It tricks you into thinking you're progressing while you've been stuck for years. Look at the people you admire most. Really look. They didn't get there by being mere experts. They got there because they dared to merge worlds others kept apart. So, are you ready to accept that uncomfortable truth? Or would you rather pretend everything's fine and keep hiding behind the safety of one skill? If you choose to stay, prepare yourself. This won't be easy. Because real knowledge was never about accumulation. It was always about connection. Now ask yourself this: do you want to be just another forgotten specialist, or someone impossible to ignore? Every time you explore a new field, a tiny spark lights up inside your brain. You might not notice it right away, but it's there. And the more sparks you create, the brighter your inner world becomes. What happens when those sparks start connecting? You get explosions of insight, entire maps of meaning unfolding. The kind of mental firepower that changes everything. Your brain isn't just for storing data. That's not where your power lies. Your true strength is in taking information and turning it into ideas that can reshape reality, ideas that disrupt patterns, ideas that break the loop. Did you know that each time you leave your usual field and explore something radically different, your brain undergoes a kind of rewiring? Literally. New connections form, new possibilities emerge. It's like finding a hidden door inside yourself, one that opens into realms of creativity you didn't know you had. Let me ask you something that might sting a little. How often do you feel like everything you do is a tired repetition? that you're running in mental circles. That feeling isn't a coincidence. It's the direct result of being trapped inside a narrow bubble of knowledge. Most people believe the solution is to dig deeper into what they already know. But they're dead wrong. What they need isn't more depth, it's more breadth. They need air, perspective, newness, to challenge themselves with ideas that shake the ground beneath them. Imagine your mind as a massive maze. You've walked the same paths for years, hoping something new appears. But every hallway is familiar, every corner is worn. What happens when you step out into a different maze? Magic. Your perception sharpens, your senses ignite. You start seeing the world in ways you never imagined. This process isn't just psychological, it's biological. Your brain literally grows stronger, faster, more adaptable. You become more creative, more resilient, more capable of solving complex problems. And here's something deeper. The more you learn from different domains, the more you begin to understand yourself. Do you know why so many people feel lost, directionless, numb? Because they never left the safe zone. They never questioned what they were told to study. They mistook comfort for purpose. But you don't have to make that mistake. You won't find your identity in what comes easy. You'll find it where it hurts, where it stretches you, where it wakes up the parts of you that have been silent for too long. To be truly free, you have to stop fearing the beginner's mind. Society taught you to feel ashamed of not knowing. It conditioned you to hide confusion, to fake confidence, to always have an answer, even if it's empty. But real power begins when you admit you don't know, and you choose to learn anyway. Vulnerability, the kind that comes from facing the unknown, is your greatest weapon. While others hide behind their tiny domains of mastery, you can become limitless. Because the moment you accept ignorance without shame, you open the door to everything. You stop playing defense. You start expanding. You start creating a mind immune to manipulation, because you no longer cling to one narrow identity. When you cross disciplines, you don't just collect knowledge, you sharpen your judgment. You begin to see what matters. You spot patterns others miss. You move differently, think deeper, decide faster, and suddenly, while others argue over one branch of the tree, you're already exploring the forest. That's what makes you dangerous. Not because you know everything, but because you can learn anything. And that scares people. It challenges the fragile comfort they built around being experts. But you're not here for comfort. You're here to become unshakable. So ask yourself, why do so many people feel lost, even with more access to information than ever before? Because they consume. They don't connect. They scroll, but they don't reflect. They collect, but they don't question. That's why the ones who thrive now aren't just knowledgeable, they're mentally disciplined. They know how to focus, how to silence the noise, how to turn complexity into clarity. And that's exactly where you're headed if you keep going. Into a version of yourself that doesn't just survive change, but creates it. You need to train your attention like a muscle. Resist the pull of superficiality, that modern disease eating minds from the inside. Because real growth isn't loud. It's deep. It's built in silence, in repetition, in choosing long-term clarity over short-term noise. And here you are now, standing at a crossroads. You can stay in your safe little niche, repeating what you already know, building comfort on a foundation of slow decay. Or you can leap into something wider, something wilder. You can become a polymath, a mind that bridges disciplines, a force that cannot be boxed in or ignored, the kind of person who rewires how others see the world, simply by existing at the intersection of unexpected ideas. Ask yourself something uncomfortable. If you could speak to the version of yourself from 10 years ago, what would you say? You'd probably tell them to stop wasting time, to explore more, to take the leap, even when afraid. So why are you still hesitating now? Why are you repeating the same fears, knowing where they lead? That's the paradox of self-awareness. We give advice to our past, but ignore that same wisdom in the present. True learning doesn't happen in straight lines. It spirals. It loops back. It fuses fragments into something new. You'll never see the full picture in the beginning, but one day, the random pieces will click, and it will all make sense. And the truth? Most people give up before that click ever comes. They quit because they think the puzzle is broken. But you are not most people. You're here because something inside you refuses to shrink. So hold that piece, even if you don't know where it fits. Trust that it has a place. Trust that you have a place, far beyond the tiny box the world tried to put you in. And that's where it gets deeper, because your mind isn't just collecting facts. It's rewiring itself. Every time you step into an unfamiliar discipline, you ignite a small revolution inside. New neural connections form, creating bridges to places you've never been. That boredom you feel, it's not a flaw. It's a signal, a whisper from your potential saying, "This is too small for you now." Society teaches us to fear boredom, to label it as laziness or lack of focus. But in truth, it's hunger. The great minds of history weren't content with mastery. They craved challenge. They grew tired of easy answers. They moved forward not because they lacked discipline, but because their curiosity burned brighter than their fear. And that same spark lives in you. You've felt it in quiet moments, in the tug toward something unknown. You've silenced it too often, afraid to look foolish, afraid to be a beginner again. But that silence is costing you more than you realize. Because the longer you wait, the harder it becomes to break the cycle. Every time you tell yourself, "not now," you build another wall around your future. But what if boredom was your doorway? What if confusion was your compass? The world doesn't need more experts locked in echo chambers. It needs visionaries who dare to combine what no one else would. That's your edge, not in what you already know, but in how far you're willing to stretch. And stretching hurts. Growth always does. But the pain of expansion is sacred. It's the price of becoming someone the world cannot predict or control. Someone who doesn't wait for permission to evolve. This isn't just about knowledge, it's about liberation. To learn something radically new is to break free from who you thought you had to be. It's an act of defiance, a quiet revolution that begins inside your own mind. But no one tells you that reinvention feels like death, not physical, but psychological. It's the grief of shedding your old identity, the one that kept you safe even if it kept you small. Most people will never do it, not because they can't, but because they're terrified of who they might become. That fear, it's powerful. It whispers, "What if you fail?" But here's a better question. What if you don't? What if what's waiting for you on the other side isn't rejection, but rebirth? What if this shedding isn't an ending, but an awakening? You weren't born to repeat the same patterns. You weren't meant to wear the same mask until the end of your life. And yet, you cling to titles, roles, and routines because they tell you who you are. But they lie. They shrink you. The truth is brutal. You outgrew that version of yourself long ago. That's why the routine feels empty. That's why your goals don't fulfill you anymore. Because they belonged to an older version of you. One who didn't yet realize how much more was possible. And now, you stand at the threshold. You've outgrown your own skin. You feel it in every conversation that bores you, every task that numbs you, every day that passes without meaning. That restlessness is not failure, it's evolution. You can ignore it, sure. You can patch the cracks, numb the questions, chase new distractions. But nothing will truly change until you have the courage to step outside the frame, to walk away from the identity that no longer fits. That's how polymaths are born, not from certainty, but from the courage to be wrong, lost, confused, from the willingness to become something entirely new, and not just once, but over and over again. Because the future doesn't belong to the fixed, it belongs to the fluid, to those who reshape themselves as easily as they absorb knowledge, to those who live not in categories, but in possibility. So now you stand in front of the mirror, not just to see your reflection, but to confront your story. Who wrote this version of you? Was it truly your hand, or someone else's script? Maybe it was comfort, maybe fear, maybe a system that prefers you predictable. But that script is outdated. It was never meant to last forever. And if you're feeling the pressure now, it's because your soul is begging for a rewrite, a draft with bolder characters, unexpected turns, and truths too loud to silence anymore. This isn't about reinventing your resume. It's about reshaping your essence, not for anyone else, but for you. Because deep down, you know, the life you're living now is too small for the person you're becoming. You're not lost, you're just unfinished. People around you might not understand. They'll call you restless, inconsistent, impossible to pin down. Let them. They see confusion, but you're cultivating complexity. They see instability, but you're building depth. The chaos they fear is the soil where your expansion grows. Let go of the shame of reinvention. The world may ask you to pick one path, but you were never made to walk a single road. You were meant to chart your own map, to write in languages others never learned, to connect constellations no one else dared trace. So yes, let it all burn, the version of you that played small, the plans that no longer inspire, the expectations that kept your fire contained. Watch the ashes fall, then rise with vision clear and direction unshakable. You don't owe the world consistency. You owe it your truth. And if your truth evolves, then so should you. Because those who dare to evolve relentlessly become impossible to define and unforgettable to ignore. People quickly forget those who never dared to stand out. But they never forget the ones who left a mark, connecting knowledge, experiences, and actions in ways no one saw coming. These are the ones who shape the world, the ones who write history not with ink, but with bold decisions. So what will you do now? You've felt the pull, you've glimpsed the edge, and once you've seen it, you can't go back to pretending. You can't unfeel the discomfort of playing small. You can't unhear the voice inside asking for more. The only option left is to leap, a decisive leap, not careful, not polite, a radical shift into becoming someone who refuses to be boxed in, someone who links the seemingly unconnected and creates something no algorithm can replicate. So do it. Dare to become more than just a polished expert in one narrow field. Dare to be a polymath, a visionary. Let your legacy be the ability to merge distant worlds into something entirely new, something that changes everything. If you've made it this far, you're already halfway there. You've shaken the foundations. You've questioned what was handed to you. And now, what lies ahead is not the end, but the true beginning. Because once you decide to explore and fuse multiple disciplines, your life expands in ways you never imagined. You won't want to go back. You'll wonder why you waited so long. And if this message stirred something inside you, if a quiet fire has started burning, then join this community of restless minds and fearless learners. Subscribe, share, be part of the mental revolution we're building. But before you go, I want you to write something down in the comments. a commitment, a small act of courage. Just type, "Today, I choose to connect worlds." Say it, own it, live it, because every time you write it, you're carving the first words of a new story. One the world won't be able to ignore.